So, hey, my name is Erik Johnson. I'm a veterinarian in Marietta, Georgia. I have a specialty in fish health. I've worked on koi and goldfish as well as other species actually for many years. Graduated from veterinary school in 1991. I'd already been through Jack Gratzik's exotics class twice. Took it another year and then taught it for 2. And what I came here to talk to you about is a virus that affects koi, not goldfish, but it affects koi at a very, very serious level with mortalities up to about 80%. It's called koi Herpes Virus. It is extremely contagious, but there's kind of a lot to know about it. It affects retailers, especially if you sell a fish with koi herpes virus. It can be the end of your business because it is so reputation destructive. If you happen to collect a koi with koi herpes virus, you will lose most of your collection. However, there is a cure. And the reason for this video is because the cure is currently and for years downplayed and poo-pooed by the establishment surrounding the koi hobby, and I'll explain to you at the conclusion of the video why that is. So you might want to get a pen and paper handy because we're going to cover a lot. Koi herpes virus was noticed probably in England, 12, 15, 18 years ago. Started wiping out a large number of fish, and that was the first time it got kind of in print and on paper. And then it was seen a few more times. The first time the United States saw it, it was at a koi show, I suppose, and some people bought some fish with koi herpes virus, took the fish back to California and Arizona and a couple other places out west, and a lot of fish died in the California areas, other places around the Northeast, etc. But no fish died in Arizona. And that connects later in what I'm going to tell you. The fish in question that were dying, the better than 80% of the fish in the collections died. They all died the same way. They peeled. The outside of the fish peeled, got milky and started to peel off. The inside of the fish started to peel. It turns out if you'd cut them open and looked, the kidneys would have peeled out, lining of the intestine. Fins rotted off. The fish became fearless as their gills stopped being able to carry oxygen, and then they died en masse. And a virus particle was found, and the virus particle resembled a herpes virus and had some latency. Turns out it would reside in the fish undetected and inactive below a certain temperature. It seemed like it was 65 or so degrees Fahrenheit. And then when the virus was brought up into the high 60s, low 70s, the virus would activate and wipe out whatever collection of fish that it was in. So it was a temperature sensitive virus and massively fatal. So here's the thing. When it was brought to Arizona, those temperatures down in Arizona were very high, and those fish were briefly ill, and all of them survived with the exception of no fish. And the reason for that, it turns out, is because the koi herpes virus is heat-labile, meaning that the capsid of the virus particle breaks down at higher temperatures. It turns out that 80 degrees Fahrenheit or slightly over 80 degrees Fahrenheit breaks down the capsid of the virus particle, and the DNA spills out, and that's it. The virus is dead, and that's the end of it. turns out, based on the anecdotal evidence and one test that was done at the University of Georgia, the virus particle is undetectable after superheating those fish. There's a problem with superheating the fish, though, by the way. It was a theory tested by a couple of retailers and then confirmed. The problem with the fish that with koi herpes virus imported from a breeder in Arkansas that had the virus, they brought them in and heated them to clear the virus, which was successful. But the problem was that the three-color fish, Sanki, Kohaku, when they were heated rapidly to 80 to 82 degrees, the red color was lost in a lot of those fish, and it devalued those fish. So if you were going to bring in 1,000 fingerlings or yearlings or even 2-year-old fish and then heat them to prevent yourself from selling fish with koi herpes virus, you might actually just blanch a bunch of valuable fish, which then wouldn't have koi herpes virus, yay, but would be devalued by the fact that you'd costed them all their color. So a lot of retailers decided at that point that they would only heat the fish if they started to see symptoms of koi herpes virus. A lot of other retailers started, when they would get fish in from suspect areas like Arkansas and certain breeders in Japan and even breeders in Taiwan and Vietnam and China later, they would send a fish off immediately to Koi Lab and other laboratories to find out if koi herpes virus was even there. And then, if necessary, they would clear the infections with heat or otherwise. A lot of breeders, importers, would kill all the fish if they had koi herpes virus, which I admire. That's great. That would bankrupt a lot of importers, because their businesses kind of hinge on the success of a couple of importations of 1,000 fish. It's expensive to bring the fish in, and losing a big batch of fish for some importers is that's it. That's swinging that, and then losing 100% of that is more than they could financially carry. The thing about that is that there's a question, or was a question, about whether or not after you heat those fish, whether or not they still carry the virus and could be infectious down the road. And not to take any chances, some of the importers would just kill every fish that was exposed to the koi herpes virus. And like I said, I admire that extra level of responsibility that they were taking in the situation with the koi herpes virus. I do. So that being said, a very limited study was taken at the University of Georgia, where they had fish that were infected with koi herpes virus. They were superheated, and then the virus was attempted to be detected in the surviving. Actually, all the fish survived, but they attempted to detect the virus in the fish that were infected with the koi herpes virus, and they could not find the particle anymore. But that test was confounded because they never were able to prove that the fish were actually infected or that the virus particle was just in the tissue. So it wasn't the kind of thing that gets published on. It's kind of an inference that doesn't sustain peer review. It doesn't hold up to great scrutiny, but it was highly suggestive that superheating the fish to 80 or above clears the virus, which supports some of the work from Israel that says that the virus capsid is labeled to heat. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover regarding koi herpes virus, and that is that it probably started in Israel, went to England, came to the United States, killed a bunch of fish, except fish that went into super warm environments down in the southwest. It turned out to be a herpes-like particle that was latent in temperatures below 68 degrees. It manifested in temperatures above 68 degrees and up to about 78 degrees. It cleared in temperatures above 80 degrees and stayed away in fish that had been heated above 80 degrees. It was used as a cure in vendors that had imported fish with koi herpes virus, and in private collections. Brenda and Charlie Atwell, for example, saved a collection of fish down in Georgia, and that was no secret. I found out about it and told them to heat their fish, and they saved theirs, including warthog, which was a famous fish they had brought back from Japan. And that there is a question, legitimately, as to whether or not those fish are 100% safe to sell after that. A lot of vendors have determined through experience that they are, and like I said, I think those were the high points of what I wanted to get on here and tell you. So, thank you for watching, and I appreciate it, and I will talk to you again.